even to us as are of a clean heart.
May God continue to bless the Church of Christ in this world.
We draw near to God, who is righteous, just, and pure. Whom have we in heaven but He? There is none on earth that we desire beside God. It is good for us to draw near to God, that we may declare all His works. Now let's sing hymn number 82, Praise the Lord, ye heavens adore Him. hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good. Amen. Well, as I said, we've come up to chapter 20 in the book of Job. It's just about halfway through. Actually, if you look at the arrangement of the way the book is set up, which I'm going to show you in a few weeks here, we're a little bit better than halfway through. When I returned from my vacation, which would be August 11th, we should be actually at the center point and the centerpiece of it. And I'll have like a diagram for you to show you the way that the book is laid out and its chiastic structure. It's really fascinating. So we'll look at that in a couple of weeks. But today, in chapter 20 of the book of Job, we hear once more from Zophar the Naamathite. And this is his second speech, in which, again, he draws on some of the traditions. He quotes some common proverbs of their time, and basically reiterates some of his earlier accusations against Job. He's just heard Job's last response, and Zophar says, "Therefore do my thoughts cause me to answer, and for this I make haste." In other words, he says, I want to be quick to answer you on this. I have heard the check of my reproach, and the spirit of my understanding causes me to answer. Don't you know this of old, since man was placed on the earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite is for a moment? Well, in the last chapter, Job had warned his friends, his, quote, comforters, that they themselves would face God's wrath because of their baseless charges against himself, against Job. And Zophar, obviously stung by this warning, proceeds here to berate Job more bitterly than ever. And he says, though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and the head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. For they which have seen him shall say, where is he? He shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night, and the eye also which saw him shall see him no more. Neither shall his place any more behold him. His children shall seek to please the poor. His hands shall restore their goods. His bones are full of the sins of his youth, and he shall lie down with him in the dust. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, and though he hide it under his tongue, though he spare it and forsake it not, but keep it still within his mouth, yet his meat in his bowels is turned. It is the gall of asps within him. He hath swallowed down riches, and he shall vomit them up again. God shall cast them out of his belly. He shall suck the poison of asps, and the viper's tongue shall slay him. He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of honey and butter. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. according to his substance shall be the restitution, and he shall not rejoice therein. Because he has oppressed and forsaken the poor, because he has violently taken away a house that he did not build. He says here, you repossessed someone's house, Job, and you've taken away and oppressed the poor people. All these are suggestions of Job's wickedness, obviously. And there's no evidence whatever that Job had been guilty of oppressing the poor. He just seems to be assuming it because of what has happened to him. And he continues saying, surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. There shall none of his meat be left. Therefore shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, God will cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn, and comes out of the body. Yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him. All darkness shall be hidden in secret places. A fire not blown shall consume him, and it shall go ill with him that is left of his tent. The heavens shall reveal his iniquity. The earth shall rise up against him. The increase of his house shall depart, and his goods shall flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion of a wicked man from God, and the heritage appointed unto him by God. Well, Zophar is furious at Job's responses to his and his friends' earlier unjust criticisms and the way that he rejected their advice. And here Zophar even calls on heaven to rebuke him in a future judgment. So he's pretty darn mad. And these were Zophar's final words to his one-time friend. And in chapter 21, Job answers, and he said, hear diligently my speech, and let this be your consolations, and allow me that I may speak, and after I have spoken, just mock on. So Job has really had it here with these scoffers, and he won't be very kind in his remarks to them anymore. But he's looking for sympathy. He's looking for understanding. And they will give him no such thing. They're just convinced in their minds that Job must be a wicked, ungodly man. But he has challenged them to point out my wickedness, and they can't do it. So Job doesn't want to keep hearing more of the same. Can you blame him? And so, let me speak, and then after I have spoken, go ahead and scoff, he says. As for me is my complaint to man, if it were so, why should not my spirit be troubled? Go ahead, mark me, be astonished, put your hand over your mouth. Even when I remember I am afraid, and trembling takes hold of my flesh. And Job now goes on to show the fallacy of the arguments that they're putting against him. That the righteous prosper. If you're really a righteous man, you'll be prosperous, is what they're saying. That it just follows. And that if you're wicked, then calamity is sure to come. Thus, any calamity that comes into your life is a sure sign of wickedness. That's her philosophy. And any prosperity is a sure sign of righteousness. So that's their basic fallacious philosophy that he's going to talk against here again. And in the New Testament, we find this same philosophy is spoken against. For example, in 1 Timothy 6, we hear of those who think that godliness is a way to gain or a way to prosperity. And Paul says, from such, turn away. From those that say living a godly life is a way to be prosperous, turn away. So Job refutes their whole philosophy by just pointing out some basic facts of life next here. Why do the wicked live, become old? Yea, they are mighty in power, he says. Their seed is established in their sight with them, and their offspring before their eyes. Their houses are safe from fear, neither is the rod of God upon them. Their bull gendereth and faileth not. Their cow calveth and casts not her calf. They send forth their little ones like a flock. Their children dance. They take the timbrel, the harp, rejoice at the sound of the organ. They spend their days in wealth, and in a moment go down to the grave. In other words, the wicked do not have prolonged suffering at the time of death. They live, their children are happy, they dance and so forth. They are the wicked. They seem to be prosperous, and then they die quickly, suddenly, rather than going through a long, suffering, lingering kind of death, as so many good people seem to do. Those are the wicked, he says. Therefore, they say unto God, depart from us. We don't desire the knowledge of your ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit should we have, if any, if we pray unto him? They don't see why they should bother to worship God. In other words, they scorn God, they shun God, they scoff. They say, hey, why should I serve God? Look, I'm happy, I've got everything I want. Why do I need God? God can take a walk as far as I'm concerned. I don't need him, I'm doing fine. And so Job pointed out, this is the way the wicked are. Now you say the wicked are cut down, the wicked are cursed. But wait a minute, that's not my observation. Wicked people oftentimes prosper abundantly. The scoffers' coffers are often full and resplendent. In fact, in the 73rd Psalm, this very same situation almost caused the psalmist Asaph to stumble. We can read from Psalm 73, where Asaph declares, truly God is good to Israel, and to those that are of a clean heart. So he's saying, first of all, I know God is good. But as for me, my feet were almost gone. My steps had well nigh slipped. I was envious of the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For there are no bands in their death. Well, here's much the same thing. Basically, they don't go through prolonged periods of suffering before they die. They seem to die quickly without a lot of suffering, he says. Their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore, pride compasseth them about as a chain. Violence covers them as a garment. Their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than their heart could wish. They are corrupt. They speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens. Their tongue walks through the earth. Therefore his people return hither, and the waters of a full cup are wrung out to them. And they said, how doth God know? And is there knowledge in the Most High? Behold, These are the ungodly who prosper in the world. They increase in riches. So you see, the psalmist Asaph is observing much the same as Job, that wicked people oftentimes prosper. Job said their children grow up before them. They don't have trouble. Their bulls gender. Their cows have calves that don't die. They're prospered in favor. They're blessed. And they're cursing God. They say, why do I need God? I don't need God. I'm happy. I'm satisfied. My coffer's full. And Asaph notices the same thing and said it almost wiped me out. It almost caused me to trip up when I saw this. It drew him to false conclusions, he said. I've cleansed my heart in vain. I've washed my hands in innocence. For all the time I'm plagued, I'm chastened. It doesn't pay to try and serve God. The wicked have it so good, and here I'm trying to do what's right, and I'm in trouble all the time. I'm plagued. Everything's going wrong. I can't even pay my bills. So it doesn't pay to serve God. That's a basic suggestion here. When I thought to know this, he said, it was too painful for me until I went unto the sanctuary of the Lord, and then I saw their end. You see, our problem is that our vision is often too narrow. We see only that which is seen, and it can cause us to trip up if we're not careful. I don't understand why wicked people often prosper and why godly people often suffer. There are many disparities there that I don't understand. I know that God is good. I know that God is righteous. I know that God is fair. But I don't know why good, godly people have to suffer. I don't know why ungodly people who really curse God, who want nothing to do with God, are so oftentimes very prosperous, seemingly often in excellent health, seeming to have fewer problems. A little bit more here from Psalm 73, where it says, until I went into the sanctuary of the Lord. I was almost wiped out. It almost caused my foot to slip. I was almost gone. What did he discover in the sanctuary of the Lord? He discovered then the end result. Then I saw their end. I now see eternity in a long-term view. When I look out beyond just today and tomorrow into eternity, and I see the end of the wicked, then I am no longer envious of the wicked. How could I be envious of the wicked who are cast into hell? Surely you have set them in slippery places, the psalmist said. They shall go down in a moment. So we can't be envious of them any longer when we see the end result, is what he's saying. And this is what coming into the sanctuary of God, as we are here, should always be about. A broadening, enlightening experience for you. Because we do get battered about many times in our worldly relationships, at our job, in school, and so forth. And we come in dragging on a Sunday morning, battered and bruised by the contact with the alien world out there, because we are actually strangers and pilgrims here. We're living in an alien world. It's alien to God, alienated from God. And if you're in life in fellowship with God, then you find yourself in an alien world. And we come into the sanctuary of God, where God broadens our whole perspective, and we begin to measure things by eternity, not by the rough week that we just had. It won't be long. Life is short. We'll soon be with him in the glories of his kingdom. Oh, how fortunate we are to know him. That's what the psalmist is saying. How fortunate we are that he loves us and he has chosen us as his children to dwell with him forever and ever. So Job here is talking from the narrow perspective. And we often do the same when we're hurting, when we're suffering. Job's seeing the way things really are in this world, and it's refuting the things that his friends are saying. The hypocrite is not cut off. The wicked are not cast aside. They often prosper. So Job looks down the road. Verse 17 here in chapter 21 says, "How oft is the candle of the wicked put out? How oft cometh their destruction upon them? God distributeth sorrows in his anger. They are as stubble before the wind, as chaff that the storm carries away." I wonder if King David was acquainted with the book of Job when he wrote the first psalm, Psalm 1, because he said that the wicked are as the chaff, which the wind driveth away, which is just what Job said here. Perhaps he quoted this phrase from Job. David was probably very familiar with Job's story. And Job continues here. He says, "God lays up his iniquity for his children. He rewards him, and he shall know it. His eyes shall see his destruction. He shall drink of the wrath of the Almighty." Are you going to teach God knowledge, seeing he judges those that are high? One dies in his full strength, being wholly at ease and quiet. His breasts are full of milk. His bones are moistened with marrow. Another dies in the bitterness of his soul, and never eats with pleasure. Well, why the difference? We don't know. Why is it that some men die in fullness and some die in poverty? Some die in pain and sorrow. Some are cut off quickly. Why does that happen? They shall lie down alike in the dust. The worms shall cover them. Behold, I know your thoughts and devices which you wrongfully imagine against me. For you say, where is the house of the prince? And where are the dwelling places of the wicked? Have you not asked them that go by the way, and do you not know their tokens? He said, you must have learned your philosophy from wayfarers, from strangers, from people in the streets. That the wicked is reserved to the day of destruction. They shall be brought forth to the day of wrath. In other words, God will judge them. That is true. Just not necessarily in this life. Who shall declare his way to his face, and who shall repay him for what he has done? Yet shall he be brought to the grave, he shall remain in his tomb. The clods of the valley shall be sweet unto him, and every man shall draw after him, as there are innumerable before him. How then do you comfort me in vain, seeing in your answers there's an inconsistency? How can you comfort me in your answers with these kinds of arguments when they're not really consistent? That's what he's saying to them. When they're not really logical, when they don't stand up to reality. And that shuts up Zophar. But in chapter 22, Eliphaz takes up the argument again. And it's the same old story. He accuses Job of being wicked and he actually makes many bad accusations. Some of what he says is, can a man be profitable unto God, as he that is wise may be profitable to himself? Is there any pleasure to the Almighty that you are righteous? Or is it any gain to him that you make your ways perfect? Will he reprove thee for the fear of thee? Or will he enter into thee with judgment? In other words, Job, do you think that you're adding anything to God? Is it anything to God if you are good? If you justify yourself, it's no gain to God. Is not thy wickedness great, and your iniquities infinite? For you have taken a pledge from the brother for nothing. You've stripped the naked of their clothing. You have not given water to the weary to drink, and you have withheld bread from the hungry. But as for the mighty man, he had the earth, and the honorable man dwelt in it. Thou hast sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless have been broken. Well, these are the accusations that Eliphaz is making against Job, and they're not known facts. He's just assuming these things now. And there's actually no proof to them at all. So Job doesn't answer these accusations immediately, but he will soon, in a few chapters. And Eliphaz blathers on. He says, snares are round about you. Sudden fear troubles you. Darkness that you cannot see. Waters are covering you. Is not God in the height of heaven? And behold the height of the stars, how high they are. And you say, how does God know? How can he judge through the dark cloud? While he's falsely accusing Job of saying, how can God see you when it's a cloudy day? You know God's up there in heaven. He can't see through the clouds. Well, Job didn't say that, but this guy is just really laying it on here. And finally he says, thick clouds are a covering. Then he can't see through them, and he walks in the circuit of heaven. Have you marked the old way which wicked men have trodden, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood? Which said unto God, depart from us, and what can the Almighty do for them? Yet he filled their houses with good things. But the counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see it and are glad, and the innocent laugh them to scorn. Whereas our substance is not cut down, but the remnant of them the fire consumes. Now, Job, acquaint yourself with God and be at peace. Thereby good shall come unto you. Receive, I pray thee, the law from his mouth, and lay up his words in your heart. So his advice to Job is, just get right. Find God. Just find God, Job, and be at peace. Listen to his words. Follow him. And then thou shalt lay up gold as the dust of the gold of Ophir, as the stones of the brooks. Yea, the Almighty shall be your defense, and you shall have plenty of silver. For then shall you have the delight in the Almighty, and you will lift up your face unto God. Thou shalt make thy prayer unto him, and he will hear you, and he shall pay your vows. Thou shalt also decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee, and a light shall shine upon thy ways. When men are cast down, then thou shalt say, there is lifting up, and he shall save the humble person. He shall deliver the island of the innocent, and it is delivered by the pureness of thine hand. Well, this phrase here right at the end, it says, island of the innocent. It doesn't seem to make sense. And I looked into it. Some translations change it and say, as one who is not innocent. So that isn't really what the Hebrew says. The word translated here to be island really is uncertain in meaning. And it's possibly better understood in context as something like query or ask, saying that the Almighty shall answer the questions of the innocent. The context seems to suggest that God will eventually answer the unanswered questions of those who are innocent. So that even though we're not getting these questions fully answered to our satisfaction right now, we certainly will one day. And then we will say, God, you are right. You are just. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And our assurance is such that our questions will be answered. That we can trust that God will be just. So in blessed assurance, we can live out our lives doing God's will to the best of our ability, and then be blessed in the end. Amen? Amen. That's our blessed assurance, so why don't we sing it? Amen? Yeah. Good segue to it. Number 572. Can you please stand and we'll all sing? return then the week after that and look at Job chapters 23 through 26, I believe. So there's your homework for the next 2 weeks, Job 23 through 26. Go in the peace of the Almighty. Amen. Praise God.